Captain Thelnara stood on the bridge of her ship, the Harmonious Dawn. She was a Valorian, tall and thin with blue skin that shimmered under the soft lights. Her large eyes watched the viewing screen as her crew worked at their stations. They had been studying a beautiful nebula for 3 days now, taking readings and collecting samples. It was supposed to be a simple science mission, nothing dangerous or exciting. The ship hummed quietly around them. Everything felt peaceful and safe, just like it always did on Galactic Union vessels. The Union had been exploring space for thousands of years. They knew how to build good ships and how to stay away from trouble. Most of the galaxy was mapped and understood. There were very few surprises left in space. Thelnara liked it that way. She had a family waiting for her back home. 2 younglings who would be starting their education soon. A mate who worked as a teacher in the capital city. After this mission, she had 30 days of leave scheduled. They were planning to visit the crystal beaches of her homeworld's southern continent. "Captain, I am detecting something unusual," her science officer said. His name was Kren, and he had worked with Thelnara for 5 years. He was good at his job and never panicked unnecessarily. "What kind of unusual?" Thelnara moved closer to his station. Kren's fingers danced across his controls, bringing up data on his screen. "There is a distortion in space approximately 2,000 kilometers from our position. It appears to be growing." Thelnara felt a small flutter of concern in her chest. Space distortions could mean many things. Most of them were natural and harmless. Some were not. "Show me." The main viewing screen changed to display what Kren had found. There, hanging in the darkness of space, was a tear. It looked like someone had cut a hole in reality itself. Purple and green energy crackled around its edges. As they watched, the tear grew larger. "I have never seen anything like this in any of our databases," Kren said quietly. "It does not match any known natural phenomenon." The ship's helmsman, a young officer named Pell, looked back at the captain. "Should we move away?" Thelnara was about to say yes when the tear suddenly expanded. It grew to 10 times its previous size in just seconds. The ship's sensors screamed warnings as massive energy readings flooded their systems. "Shields up!" "Helm, take us back. Full speed," Thelnara ordered. Her voice stayed calm, but her hearts were beating faster now. The Harmonious Dawn began to turn, its engines powering up to push them away from the distortion. But before they could build up any real speed, something came through the tear. Ships, dozens of them pouring out of the opening like insects from a disturbed nest. They were dark and angular, covered in sharp edges and what looked like weapon ports. Their hulls were black metal that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Everything about their design screamed aggression and violence. "Unknown vessels detected," the tactical officer announced. His voice shook slightly. "Captain, I am reading weapon signatures. Very powerful ones. They are charging their weapon systems." Thelnara stared at the screen. In all her years of service, she had never seen ships like these. The Galactic Union had been at peace for centuries. There were no hostile species in known space. Everyone traded, talked, and solved problems through diplomacy. War was something from ancient history. "Try to contact them." "All standard frequencies," she ordered. The communications officer worked his console, sending out greetings in every major language of the Union. There was no response. The dark ships continued to emerge from the tear, and more of them were turning toward the Harmonious Dawn. "Captain, they are targeting us," the tactical officer said. "Multiple vessels have locked weapons on our position. Evasive maneuvers. Helm, get us out of here. Communications, send a distress signal. Emergency priority. Send it to every Union ship and station within range." The helmsman pushed the ship into a hard turn, trying to put distance between them and the hostile fleet. The communications officer's hands flew across his controls, broadcasting their emergency on all channels. Then the enemy fired. The first shot was a beam of red energy so bright it hurt to look at. It crossed the distance between the ships in less than a second and slammed into the Harmonious Dawn shields. The barriers held, but warning lights flashed across every console on the bridge. "Shields down to 60% from a single hit," the tactical officer reported. "Captain, our shields cannot take many more shots like that." More beams lanced out from the enemy fleet. The helmsman did his best to dodge, throwing the ship into rolls and turns that made the artificial gravity struggle to compensate. Some shots missed, but too many found their target. Each impact drained more power from the shields. Thelnara gripped the arms of her command chair as the ship shook around her. "How many hostile ships are there now?" Over 100, Captain, and more are still coming through the tear. 100 ships, all of them hostile, all of them firing. The Harmonious Dawn was a science vessel. It had light shields and no weapons beyond basic defensive systems meant to deal with asteroids and debris. They had nothing that could fight back against this kind of attack. Distress signal is broadcasting continuously, the communications officer said. But Captain, the nearest Union military ships are at least 3 hours away. 3 hours. They would be dead in minutes at this rate. Another barrage of enemy fire struck the ship. This time the shields failed completely. The red beams tore into the hull itself, ripping through the metal plating like it was paper. Explosions blossomed along the port side of the ship. Atmosphere vented into space through the holes. Hull breaches on decks 4, 5, 6, and 7, Kren reported. Emergency bulkheads are sealing, but we have lost main propulsion. We are dead in space. Thelnara looked around her bridge at her crew. They were all looking at her, waiting for orders, hoping she had some plan to save them. But she had nothing. Their shields were gone. Their engines were destroyed. They could not run and could not fight. The enemy ships moved closer, surrounding the Harmonious Dawn like predators circling wounded prey. They were not in a hurry now. They knew their victim could not escape. Keep broadcasting the distress signal, Thelnara said softly. Use all available power. Someone needs to know about this threat. She thought about her family. Her younglings would grow up without her. Her mate would receive a formal notification of her death in the line of duty. She had always known that space exploration carried risks, but she had never really believed something like this would happen. The galaxy had been safe for so long. Captain, I am adding tactical data to the distress signal, Kren said. Ship numbers, weapon capabilities, everything our sensors have collected. If we do not survive, at least the Union will know what they are facing. Thelnara nodded. It was the only thing they could do now. Warn others, maybe save lives even if they could not save their own. The enemy ships fired again. More explosions tore through the Harmonious Dawn. The lights flickered and went out, replaced by dim emergency lighting that painted everything in red shadows. The air grew thin as life support struggled to maintain atmosphere in the damaged sections. Communications, add something to the distress signal, Thelnara said. Tell anyone who receives it that we understand if they cannot help. Tell them we know we are far from any territory, but if there is anyone out there who can hear us, we are asking for help. We are dying here. She closed her eyes for a moment, saying a silent prayer to the old gods of her world, gods that most modern Valorians no longer believed in. But in the face of death, she found herself reaching for the comfort of ancient faith. The communications officer looked up from his station, his face pale in the red light. Captain, we are receiving a response. Thelnara's eyes snapped open. What from who? I do not know. The signal is heavily encrypted, but it is breaking through our systems. It is translating now. A voice filled the bridge. It was deeper than most species in the Union, with a rough quality that suggested a harsh environment of origin. Galactic Union vessel, this is Commander Ryan Baker of the United Earth Navy. We received your distress call. Hold on. We are getting you out of there. Earth, the death world, the planet with crushing gravity, toxic atmosphere, and violent weather, home to the humans, the newest species to join galactic civilization, the species that made most Union members nervous because they were so comfortable with violence and danger. But Earth ships are not supposed to be in this sector, the tactical officer said, confused. They are restricted to their own territory. Thelnara started to laugh. It was a slightly hysterical sound, but she could not help it. They were about to die, surrounded by an enemy fleet, and she was worried about jurisdictional boundaries. Respond to them, she ordered. Tell them we welcome any help they can provide. On the viewing screen, something new appeared. Ships, emerging from faster-than-light travel in perfect formation. They were smaller than Union military vessels, but somehow looked far more dangerous. Their hulls were gray and angular, covered in armor plating and weapon ports. They moved with a speed and grace that seemed impossible for their size. The human fleet had arrived, 8 ships facing more than 100 enemies. Thelnara wondered if the humans understood what they were flying into. Then she remembered the reports she had read about Ea. Admiral Jack Morrison sat in his office on the orbital station Olympus, reviewing routine reports. At 53 years old, he had spent more than half his life in the United Earth Navy. He had started as a young pilot, worked his way up through the ranks, and now commanded the defense forces for an entire sector of human space. It was mostly boring work these days, which was exactly how he liked it. Boring meant peaceful, and peaceful meant nobody was dying. His office window looked out at Earth below. The planet hung in space like a blue and white marble, beautiful and deadly. Jack had been born on Earth in the mountains of Colorado. He remembered the thin air that made newcomers gasp, the sudden storms that could kill unprepared hikers, the wildlife that saw humans as either prey or threat. Earth was classified as a Class 12 death world by the Galactic Union, one of the most dangerous inhabited planets ever discovered. Jack had always found that classification funny. To him, Earth was just home. The door to his office burst open without warning. Lieutenant Commander Kate Sullivan rushed in, her face flushed with excitement or worry. Jack could not tell which yet. Kate was his chief intelligence officer, and she did not break protocol unless something important had happened. "Admiral, we have a situation," Kate said. She moved to his desk and activated the holographic display built into its surface. Data streams appeared in the air, glowing blue against the dimmer office lights. "What kind of situation?" Jack leaned forward, his eyes scanning the information. "We picked up a distress signal. It's not from any of our colonies or ships." Kate highlighted a portion of the data. "Sir, it's alien." "Galactic Union vessel under attack?" Jack felt his stomach tighten. In the 3 years since humanity had made contact with the Galactic Union, relations had been careful and cautious. The Union was made up of dozens of peaceful species who had been exploring space for thousands of years. They had welcomed humanity, but with obvious nervousness. Humans were too aggressive, too militaristic, too comfortable with violence for their taste. The Union had asked humanity to limit military operations to human-controlled space. They had protocols and procedures for everything, layers of bureaucracy designed to prevent conflict. Most Union species had not fought a real war in centuries. Some had never fought one at all. "Play the signal," Jack ordered. Kate worked the controls, and a translated voice filled the office. It was calm, despite the sounds of destruction in the background. The alien captain described the attacking fleet, provided detailed tactical data, warned of the threat to nearby systems. The professionalism in that voice reminded Jack of human naval officers facing impossible odds. They were going to die, but they were going to do their job until the very end. Then came the part that made Jack's hands curl into fists. "We understand this is not your territory. We understand you are new to galactic affairs, but if there is anyone who can hear this, please help us. Our shields cannot hold. They are killing us." The signal dissolved into static, then silence. Jack stared at the holographic display for a long moment. He thought about the alien captain, sending out that message while their ship fell apart around them. Apologizing for asking for help, expecting to be ignored because it was not humanity's problem, not humanity's territory, not humanity's responsibility. "Where's the Fifth Fleet right now?" Jack asked. Kate had clearly anticipated the question. She pulled up a star chart showing the locations of human military forces. "The Fifth Fleet is conducting training exercises in Sector 7, under Commander Ryan Baker's command. They could reach the distress signal's location in approximately 40 minutes. 40 minutes. The alien ship would probably be dead by then, but there might be survivors, and more importantly, there would be an enemy fleet that needed to understand they had made a very serious mistake. "Get me Commander Baker, priority channel." The holographic display shimmered and changed, showing the face of Ryan Baker. He was in his early 40s, with short gray hair and sharp features that reminded Jack of a hawk. Ryan had earned his reputation during the Mars Rebellion 10 years ago, when separatist forces had tried to declare independence. He had been a young captain then, and he had outmaneuvered and defeated a numerically superior force through sheer tactical brilliance and ruthless efficiency. "Admiral Morrison," Ryan said, "I'm guessing this is about the alien distress call? You picked it up too? My communications officer flagged it 3 minutes ago. I've been reviewing the tactical data they included in the signal." Ryan's expression was grim. "Sir, that enemy fleet tore through their shields like tissue paper. The aliens never had a chance." Jack pulled up the tactical analysis on his own display. The data was troubling. The enemy ships used weapons technology that did not match anything in Union or human databases. They had appeared through some kind of spatial rift, which suggested extragalactic origin. And there were a lot of them. "How fast can you get the Fifth Fleet to those coordinates?" Jack asked. 38 minutes at maximum burn. "Sir, are we authorized to engage? We'd be operating outside our assigned territory." That was the question. Jack had the authority to order military operations within human space, but this was deep inside Galactic Union territory. The Union had very specific rules about military intervention. There were forms to fill out, councils to consult, diplomatic channels to navigate. It could take days to get proper authorization. By then, the alien crew would be dead. More importantly, that enemy fleet would have time to attack other targets, kill more people, maybe even establish a foothold in Union space. Jack thought about the tone of that alien captain's voice, the resignation mixed with desperate hope. Someone crying out in the dark, not really expecting anyone to answer. "You have my authorization, Commander," Jack said. "Take the Fifth Fleet and render assistance to that Union vessel. Rules of engagement are defensive posture unless fired upon. But Ryan, those hostiles have already destroyed one ship. Their intentions are clear." A slight smile crossed Ryan's face. It was not a nice smile. It was the smile of a predator that had just spotted prey. "Understood, Admiral. Fifth Fleet will jump in 30 seconds. Baker out." The holographic display went dark. Kate stood on the other side of the desk, her expression worried. "Sir, the Galactic Union Council is going to have questions. We're technically violating the territorial agreements. Then they can file a complaint after we save their people." Jack stood and walked to the window, looking down at Earth. "Kate, I want full battle intelligence on that region. Find out everything you can about those enemy ships. Use every resource we have." "Yes, sir. And contact Captain Linda Hayes on the Constellation. Have her battle group move to support position. If this is the start of something bigger, I want us ready to respond." Kate nodded and left the office to carry out his orders. Jack remained at the window, watching his homeworld turn slowly below. He thought about the first time he had met aliens. It had been 3 years ago, just after first contact. The Union delegation had arrived in a beautiful ship that looked like a work of art, all flowing lines and elegant curves. The aliens had been polite and welcoming, but Jack had seen the nervousness in their body language. They had reviewed Earth's history, seen the wars and violence, and they were afraid. One of the delegates, a tall being with purple skin and too many arms, had asked Jack why humans fought so much, why they seemed to love war. Jack had tried to explain that humans did not love war. They hated it. But Earth had taught them a simple lesson that apparently the rest of the galaxy had forgotten. Sometimes the only thing standing between survival and extinction was the willingness to fight. The delegate had not understood. None of them had. They came from gentle worlds with mild weather and no predators. They had developed intelligence and civilization without having to constantly fight for survival. To them, violence was an aberration, something to be avoided at all costs. To humans, violence was just another tool, unpleasant but sometimes necessary. Jack's desk communicator chimed. He walked back and activated it. "Admiral Morrison, this is Captain Linda Hayes. I received your orders. The Constellation and her battle group are moving to support position. ETA to rally point is 2 hours. Thank you, Linda. I hope we don't need you, but better to have forces in position." "Understood, sir. Hayes out." Jack sat back down and pulled up the tactical data from the distress signal again. He studied the enemy ship profiles, their weapon signatures, their formation tactics. They were organized and professional, not pirates or raiders. This was a military force and they had a purpose. The question was, what purpose? Why attack a lone science vessel? Why emerge through a spatial rift into Union territory? What were they after? His communicator chimed again. This time it was Kate. "Admiral, I've been reviewing the sensor data from the distress signal. The spatial rift those enemy ships came through is still open and growing. Long-range scans suggest there might be more ships on the other side. How many more? Hard to say with certainty, sir. The rift is causing interference, but preliminary estimates suggest hundreds, maybe thousands." Jack felt cold. This was not a raid. This was an invasion. "Kate, contact the Union Embassy. Request an immediate meeting with their military liaison. They need to know what's coming." "Yes, sir." Commander Ryan Baker felt the familiar sensation of faster-than-light travel ending as the USS Defiance dropped back into normal space. His stomach did a small flip, a reminder that the human body was not designed for the physics-defying speeds that modern ships could achieve. Around him, the bridge crew worked at their stations with practiced efficiency. They had trained together for 3 years, and everyone knew their job. The main view screen activated, showing the battle site. Ryan had read the tactical data from the distress signal. but seeing it with his own eyes made it real in a way numbers could not. The alien ship was dying. Atmosphere and debris trailed from dozens of holes in its hull. It tumbled slowly through space, clearly unable to control its movement. Emergency lights flickered across its surface. Surrounding it were the enemy ships, more than 100 of them, dark and angular, continuing to fire into the helpless Union vessel. They were not trying to disable it or capture it. They were executing it. "Tactical report," Ryan ordered, his voice calm and level. He had learned long ago that a commander's tone set the mood for the entire bridge. If he panicked, they would panic. If he stayed calm, they would too. Lieutenant Peter Grant worked his tactical console, fingers moving across the controls with speed born from countless drills. "Sir, I count 147 hostile vessels. They range from small patrol craft up to what look like cruiser-class ships. Their weapons are some kind of directed energy, probably plasma-based. No missile signatures. Shields appear minimal." Ryan studied the tactical display that appeared on his command chair's arm panel. The enemy fleet had positioned themselves in a loose sphere around the alien ship, taking turns firing. It was almost casual, like they were practicing target shooting rather than murdering a crew. "Life signs on the Union vessel?" "Detecting multiple life signs, but they're fading fast. That ship won't hold together much longer." Ryan made his decision. "All ships, combat formation Delta 7. We're going to position ourselves between those hostiles and the damaged Union ship. Communications. Try to reach the alien captain." The communications officer, a young woman named Helen Price, worked her console. "Channel open, sir. Audio only. Their communications array is heavily damaged." "Union vessel, this is Commander Ryan Baker of the United Earth Navy. We received your distress call." "Hold on. We're getting you out of there." There was a pause filled with static and the distant sound of alarms. Then a translated voice came through, weak and strained. "Earth vessel. But your world is classified as too dangerous for military operations outside your territory. You should not be here. You should not risk yourselves for us." Ryan allowed himself a small smile. "Yeah, well, we have a bad habit of ignoring classifications when people need help. Just sit tight and let us work." The enemy fleet had noticed the arrival of the human ships. Several of the larger vessels were turning away from the dying Union ship to face this new threat. Ryan could see their weapons charging, building power for another volley. "Sir, we're being hailed by the hostile fleet," Helen announced. "They're ordering us to leave immediately or be destroyed." How polite of them. Ryan pulled up the targeting solutions on his display. 8 human ships against 147 enemies. The math was not good, but math had never stopped humanity before. "Lieutenant Grant, target solutions on the enemy ships closest to the Union vessel. I want them eliminated now." "Locked and ready, sir. All ships reporting weapons hot." Ryan took a breath. This was the moment. Once they fired, there was no going back. This would be an act of war against an unknown enemy. The Galactic Union would have questions. Politicians would demand explanations. Diplomats would file protests. But right now, none of that mattered. Right now, people were dying, and Ryan had the power to stop it. "All ships, weapons free, fire." The Defiance and her sister ships opened up with everything they had. Railguns launched tungsten penetrators accelerated to a significant fraction of light speed. The projectiles crossed the distance to the enemy fleet in seconds, moving too fast for most sensors to track properly. Missile pods opened and released. Their payloads. Dozens of smart weapons that immediately began evasive maneuvers as they raced toward their targets. Laser batteries added streams of coherent light to the barrage, each beam carrying enough energy to vaporize steel. The effect was immediate and devastating. The first enemy ship that the human weapons hit simply came apart. The railgun round punched through its hull and out the other side, the kinetic impact transferring so much energy that the entire vessel shattered into fragments. 2 more enemy ships died the same way in the next second, their armor completely unable to stop the tungsten penetrators. The missiles reached their targets next. Nuclear warheads detonated in carefully calculated patterns, the explosions tearing through enemy shields and hull plating. 2 more ships vanished in the fireballs. The lasers carved glowing wounds through any vessel they touched, cutting through armor like a torch through butter. Direct hits across all target profiles, Peter reported, his voice carrying a note of satisfaction. Sir, their shields are almost non-existent, and their armor is designed for energy weapons, not kinetic strikes. They've never faced railguns before. Ryan watched as the enemy fleet reacted. There was a moment of confusion, ships breaking formation as they tried to process what had just happened. They had been methodically destroying the Union vessel, secure in their overwhelming superiority. Now 15 of their ships had been eliminated in the opening seconds of combat. Helm, take us between the enemy fleet and that damaged Union ship. Maximum speed. All vessels maintain defensive screen. Ryan switched to the fleet-wide channel. All captains, stay tight and keep firing. Make every shot count. The 8 human ships moved with a precision that came from endless training. They formed up in a protective screen between the dying Union vessel and the hostile fleet, their weapons never stopping. More enemy ships died with each passing second, torn apart by weapons they had no defense against. The enemy fleet finally organized a response. Energy beams lanced out from dozens of ships, brilliant red and purple streams of plasma that lit up the darkness. The first few shots missed as the human ships dodged with unexpected agility for their size. When the beams did connect with the human vessels, they struck the deflector shields and dissipated, their energy absorbed and redirected. Shields holding at 92%, the defensive systems officer called out. Sir, their weapons aren't penetrating. They're designed to overwhelm shields through sustained fire, but our shields are built differently. Ryan nodded. Human shields were based on principles developed in the harsh radiation environment near Jupiter. They were designed to handle incredible amounts of energy from multiple vectors. The enemy weapons were powerful, but they were not powerful enough. All ships begin rescue operations. Get shuttles over to that Union vessel and start pulling survivors out. The Defiance will maintain covering fire. 2 of the human ships broke formation and moved toward the damaged alien vessel. Their launch bays opened, and small shuttles emerged, racing across the distance to the dying ship. The enemy fleet saw what was happening and redirected their fire, trying to target the rescue operation. The USS Valiant, a destroyer under the command of Captain Greg Stone, positioned itself directly in the path of the enemy fire. Her weapons blazed, creating a wall of destruction that forced the enemy ships to break off their attack or die. 3 enemy vessels tried to push through anyway. The Valiant tore them apart with concentrated laser fire. Sir, the enemy fleet is pulling back, Peter announced. They're regrouping at the edge of weapons range. Ryan studied the tactical display. The enemy fleet had lost 47 ships in less than 15 minutes of combat. The human fleet had suffered only minor shield damage. The enemy commander, whoever they were, had finally realized that this was not a fight they could win easily. Keep the pressure on them, Ryan ordered. Don't let them get comfortable. And someone get me a status update on those rescue operations. Commander Baker, this is Shuttle 7. We've docked with the Union vessel and are evacuating survivors now. Medical teams are standing by. Ryan switched his display to show the view from one of the shuttle cameras. He could see human rescue workers in armored suits moving through the damaged alien ship, carrying injured crew members to safety. The aliens looked fragile compared to the humans, their bodies not built for the harsh conditions of a damaged spacecraft. One of the shuttle pilots spoke over the channel. Sir, you should see this ship. It's a wreck. I don't know how anyone survived. These aliens are tougher than they look. Ryan thought about the alien captain who had sent that distress signal. Calm and professional even while dying, making sure to send tactical data that might help others even though it would not save their own crew. That took courage. The same kind of courage he had seen in human naval officers facing impossible odds. Courage was not unique to humanity. They were just better at using it because Earth had given them so much practice. All shuttles, expedite the rescue. I want everyone off that Union ship in 5 minutes. The enemy fleet is regrouping, and I don't want to be caught with shuttles in the open when they come. The enemy fleet was indeed regrouping. Captain Thelnara clung to what remained of her command chair as another explosion shook the harmonious dawn. The lights had failed completely now, leaving only the dim red glow of emergency systems. The air had grown thin and cold. Her breathing apparatus struggled to filter enough oxygen from the failing life support. Around her, the surviving bridge crew worked at their damaged stations or helped the injured. She had accepted death 20 minutes ago. The attacking fleet's weapons had been overwhelming, and there had been no hope of escape. The Galactic Union's nearest military vessels were hours away. By the time help arrived, the harmonious dawn would be nothing but scattered debris and frozen bodies. Then the impossible had happened. The humans had come. Through the fractured view screen, Thelnara watched the Earth ships dance through space. They moved with a grace that seemed to defy the laws of physics. More importantly, they were winning. Every few seconds, another enemy ship died, torn apart by weapons that Thelnara had never seen before. The humans were outnumbered more than 15 to 1, but they fought like the predators Earth had made them. "Captain, we are being hailed by one of the Earth ships," her communications officer said. His voice was weak, and Thelnara could see blood on his uniform. "They are requesting permission to dock shuttles for evacuation." Thelnara activated her communicator with trembling fingers. "Earth vessels, this is Captain Thelnara. You have permission to dock. We have 73 crew members still alive. 27 require immediate medical attention." A human voice responded, calm and professional, despite the chaos of battle happening around them. "Copy that, Captain. Our shuttles are on approach. We'll have you out of there in 5 minutes." 5 minutes. Thelnara looked around her dying ship. Could it hold together for 5 more minutes? The hull was breached in multiple locations. Main power was offline. Structural integrity was failing. They were held together more by luck than engineering at this point. The ship shuddered again, harder this time. Warning alarms blared until someone managed to shut them off. In the sudden silence, Thelnara could hear the groan of stressed metal, the hiss of escaping atmosphere, the quiet prayers of crew members who had given up on survival. "Captain, human shuttles are docking now," the communications officer reported. Thelnara pulled herself out of her command chair and moved toward the bridge exit. Her first officer, Kren, was already helping injured crew members toward the docking ports. The science officer who had first detected the spatial rift now lay unconscious, being carried by 2 other crew members. The corridor beyond the bridge was a nightmare. Sections of the wall had been torn away, exposing the dark void beyond. Emergency force fields held back the vacuum, but they flickered and threatened to fail at any moment. Bodies floated in zero gravity, crew members who had not made it to safety when the artificial gravity failed. Thelnara and her surviving crew made their way through the damaged corridors toward the nearest docking port. They moved slowly, carefully, knowing that one wrong step could send them into a breached section where they would die in seconds. When they reached the docking port, Thelnara saw the human shuttle for the first time. It was smaller than Union shuttles, more compact and efficient. The design spoke of a species that valued function over form, survival over comfort. The airlock cycled open and humans emerged. They wore armored suits that looked heavy and protective. Through their helmets, Thelnara could see their faces. Humans looked strange to her eyes with their forward-facing predator eyes and their hair. But there was something reassuring about the calm competence in their expressions. One of the humans approached her, moving with the heavy confidence that came from high gravity. The human removed their helmet, revealing a female face with short brown hair and steady dark eyes. "Captain Thelnara? I'm Lieutenant Amy Foster, USS Defiance. We need to get you and your crew off this ship immediately. It's not going to hold together much longer." Thelnara gestured toward her injured crew members. "Please take them first. The wounded need medical attention." Amy nodded and spoke into her suit communicator. More humans emerged from the shuttle, carrying medical equipment. They moved quickly but carefully, assessing each injured crew member and providing immediate treatment before moving them onto the shuttle. Thelnara watched as the humans worked. They handled her crew with surprising gentleness, despite their obvious physical strength. One human medic, a male with gray hair, carefully stabilized a young Valorian whose breathing apparatus had been damaged. His hands were large and looked clumsy, but they moved with precision as he attached an emergency oxygen supply. "You will all survive," the human medic said softly. "We have excellent medical facilities. You are safe now." The harmonious dawn shuddered violently. The emergency lights dimmed and then went out completely. In the darkness, Thelnara heard metal screaming as structural supports failed. The ship was dying its final death. "Everyone move now," Amy ordered. "This ship is coming apart." The humans guided Thelnara and her crew through the airlock and into the shuttle. It was cramped with so many people, but the humans made room, strapping everyone into acceleration seats or securing them to the walls with safety harnesses. The human medics continued to work even as the shuttle prepared to launch, their hands steady despite the confined space. Thelnara found herself strapped into a seat next to Amy. Through the small viewport she could see the harmonious dawn. Her ship. Her home for the past 5 years. It tumbled through space, trailing debris and atmosphere. As she watched, another section of the hull collapsed. Shuttle 7 to Defiance were loaded and ready for extraction, the pilot announced. Copy that, 7. Be advised, hostile vessels are attempting to target rescue operations. The Valiant is running interference, but make it quick. The shuttle detached from the dying ship and accelerated hard. The force pushed Thelnara back into her seat. She was used to the gentle acceleration of Union vessels. This was different. The humans built their ships for power and speed, because they came from a world where being slow meant being dead. Through the viewport, Thelnara saw something that made her breath catch. 3 enemy ships were moving to intercept the shuttle. Their weapons were charging, building power for a killing shot. The shuttle was small and unarmored. One direct hit would destroy it completely. Then the USS Valiant moved into position. The human destroyer put itself directly between the shuttle and the enemy ships, deliberately using its own hull as a shield. The Valiant's weapons blazed, every gun firing at maximum rate. It was not trying to be precise or careful. It was creating a wall of death that nothing could cross. 2 of the enemy ships tried anyway. They lasted 4 seconds before being torn apart by the concentrated fire. The 3rd ship turned and fled. Defiance, this is Shuttle 7. We owe the Valiant a drink. Several drinks. Thelnara heard laughter on the human communication channel. They were joking while fighting a desperate battle against overwhelming odds. She thought about the intelligence reports she had read about humans. The Galactic Council had been concerned about their aggression, their comfort with violence, their refusal to follow established diplomatic protocols. Now she understood. Humans were not aggressive because they loved violence. They were aggressive because Earth had taught them that sometimes aggression was the only thing that kept you alive. And more importantly, it was the only thing that let you protect others. The shuttle docked with the Defiance. The airlock cycled and humans guided Thelnara and her crew into the ship. The interior was functional and efficient, everything designed for maximum effectiveness. The corridors were wider than Union standard, built for people who were heavier and took up more space. The lighting was brighter, adapted for eyes that had evolved under a sun that produced more harmful radiation than most stars. They were led to the medical bay, a large room filled with equipment that looked both advanced and intimidating. Human medical technology had developed to deal with injuries from a planet that was actively trying to kill its inhabitants. Broken bones, torn muscles, radiation exposure, toxic compounds, these were all routine problems for Earth medicine. The human doctor who had been in the shuttle approached Thelnara. Captain, I'm Dr. Alan Cooper. You have a concussion and some internal injuries from the impacts, but nothing we can't fix. Your crew is being treated as well. Everyone will make a full recovery. The battle, Thelnara said. I need to know what is happening. Alan hesitated, then helped her to a monitor on the wall. It showed the tactical display of the battle. The human fleet had destroyed 47 enemy ships in the time it had taken to evacuate the Harmonious Dawn. The hostile fleet was pulling back, regrouping at the edge of weapon range. Commander Baker is very good at his job, Alan said. Your crew is safe now. That's what matters. Thelnara watched the display, seeing the 8 human ships holding position against more than 100 enemies. She thought about the distress call she had sent, not really expecting anyone to answer. She had been prepared to die with her crew, accepted that their deaths would at least serve as a warning to others. Instead, the humans had come. They had risked their lives, violated territorial agreements, and engaged an overwhelming enemy force. Admiral Jack Morrison stood in the diplomatic conference room on Olympus Station, facing the holographic representatives of the Galactic Union Council. 12 species were represented, their images projected from worlds scattered across thousands of light years. Each counselor displayed a different reaction to recent events. Some looked grateful, others worried, and a few seemed almost frightened. The emergency session had been going on for 2 hours, and Jack was reaching the limits of his patience. He was a military officer, not a diplomat. He understood weapons and tactics and the brutal mathematics of combat. Political discussions filled with careful language and hidden meanings exhausted him more than any battle. High Counselor Vrendos spoke, their translated voice carrying undertones of authority and concern. Admiral Morrison, we must again express our gratitude for Commander Baker's intervention. The crew of the Harmonious Dawn owes their lives to human courage. However, we must address the manner in which this intervention occurred. Jack kept his face neutral. Here it came. The part where they thanked humanity for saving lives and then complained about how it was done. Your vessels entered Galactic Union protected space without authorization. They engaged in military action without consulting Union command. While we understand the emergency nature of the situation, these actions violated several established protocols. Another counselor, a being that looked like a floating jellyfish made of crystal, spoke up. Furthermore, the effectiveness of human weapons against the hostile fleet has raised questions. During first contact, humanity provided detailed information about your military capabilities. Yet the ease with which Commander Baker's small fleet destroyed 47 enemy vessels suggests that this information was not complete. Jack felt his jaw tighten. They were questioning his honesty, suggesting that humanity had lied about their military strength. He took a breath, reminding himself that losing his temper would not help the situation. High Counselor, members of the Council, let me be very clear. We disclosed our military capabilities accurately and honestly. We provided complete technical specifications of our weapons, shields, and propulsion systems. Every single detail was shared with your science advisors. Jack pulled up a holographic display, showing the technical data humanity had provided 3 years ago. The problem is not that we lied. The problem is that you made assumptions. You assumed that because most species build weapons a certain way, humanity would too. You were wrong. He highlighted specific sections of the data. Our railguns use kinetic energy, not directed energy beams. Most galactic species abandoned kinetic weapons thousands of years ago because they're inefficient against shields. But we use them because they work against the kinds of shields we developed to handle Earth's radiation belts. We told you all of this. You just did not think it mattered. The crystal being pulsed with colors that the translation software interpreted as skepticism. Are you suggesting that the difference in weapon types alone explains your victory? I'm suggesting that you've been peaceful for so long that you forgot what war actually looks like, Jack said bluntly. That hostile fleet used overwhelming firepower and numerical superiority. They expected the Harmonious Dawn to just sit there and die because that's what soft targets do. They had the same assumption about Commander Baker's fleet. He changed the display to show footage from the battle. Watch how they fight. They move in predictable patterns. They don't use cover or evasion. They just line up and shoot, expecting their numbers to win. That might work against species who haven't fought a real war in centuries. It does not work against humans. High Counselor Vrendos leaned forward in their holographic projection. And this is precisely what concerns many council members, Admiral. Your species has too much experience with war. You are too comfortable with violence. Jack felt something snap inside him. He had been patient. He had been diplomatic. He had tried to play by their rules. But they were judging humanity for the very skills that had just saved Union lives. You know what? Jack said, his voice hard. You're right. We are comfortable with violence. Earth made us that way. We evolved on a planet where everything tried to kill us. The weather, the animals, the diseases, even the plants. We learned to fight because fighting was the only way to survive. He gestured at the holographic counselors. Your species developed on gentle worlds. Mild climates. Few predators. You built civilizations without having to constantly watch your back. That's great. I'm happy for you. But don't you dare judge us for being shaped by our environment when that's exactly what happened to you too. The conference room fell silent. Jack knew he should stop, should back down, should return to careful diplomatic language. But he was tired of being treated like humanity was a dangerous child that needed to be watched and controlled. Let me tell you what happened today, Jack continued. Captain Thelnara sent out a distress call. She was dying, her crew was dying, and she apologized for asking for help. She said she understood that it was not our territory, not our problem. She expected everyone to ignore her because helping would be inconvenient. Jack pulled up the star chart showing the location of the attack. The nearest Union military vessels were 3 hours away. Your protocols required Thelnara to fill out a formal request, submit it through proper channels, wait for approval from multiple committees. By the time anyone got authorization to help, she would have been dead. He looked at each counselor in turn. Commander Baker heard that distress call. He did not wait for authorization. He did not check whether it was politically convenient. He took his ships and he went to help because someone needed it. That's what humans do. When someone calls for help, we answer. One of the counselors, a being covered in soft fur, spoke softly. Admiral Morrison, we are not ungrateful. We simply want to understand. Your species frightens many of us. You are so much more aggressive than any species we have encountered. Good, Jack said. You should be frightened. Not of us, but of what's out there. He changed the display to show the spatial rift and the enemy fleet beyond it. Commander Baker's people analyzed that rift. It's stable and growing. On the other side, we detected thousands of ships, maybe tens of thousands. The implications settled over the council like a heavy weight. The attack on the Harmonious Dawn had not been an isolated incident. It was the beginning of something much larger. This enemy, whoever they are, they came from outside our galaxy. Jack continued. They have technology we don't recognize and tactics that suggest serious military training. They attacked a science vessel without warning or provocation. They're not here to talk or trade. They're here to conquer. High Counselor Vrendos looked shaken. What are you suggesting, Admiral? I'm suggesting that your long peace is over. The galaxy just got dangerous again and you need to adapt or die. Jack pulled up a tactical analysis. Commander Baker's fleet is holding position at the rift. They're gathering intelligence and preventing more enemy ships from entering our space. But 8 ships cannot hold that position forever. He looked directly at the High Counselor. I'm going to recommend to the Earth government that we mobilize additional forces. We'll send more ships, more weapons, more personnel. We'll help defend the Union because that's what allies do. But in return, I want something from you. What do you want, Admiral? I want you to stop treating us like we're a problem that needs to be managed. We're not your enemies. We're your defenders. Earth made us hard and violent and aggressive because that's what survival required. Now you need those qualities because the enemy at your door does not care about your diplomatic protocols or your peaceful history. Jack took a breath, forcing his voice to calm. When this is over, when we've beaten back this invasion, we need to have a serious conversation about galactic defense. Because your current system does not work. It leaves science vessels undefended and requires dying people to fill out forms before anyone helps them. The conference room was silent for a long moment. Then High Counselor Vrendos spoke, their voice softer than before. Admiral Morrison, on behalf of the Galactic Union, we formally request human military assistance in defending against this threat. We will provide all necessary support, resources, and authorization for human forces to operate in Union space. And you are correct. When this crisis is resolved, we must discuss restructuring our approach to defense. Jack nodded. We accept. I'll have fleet deployments and tactical plans ready within 6 hours. Another counselor spoke up. Admiral, may I ask a question? Of course. Commander Baker's fleet destroyed nearly 50 enemy vessels while suffering minimal damage. Do you truly believe we can defeat an invasion force of thousands? Jack pulled up an image of Earth, the blue and white planet hanging in space. Counselor, my species has been fighting for survival since we climbed down from the trees. We've fought predators, diseases, natural disasters, and each other. We've been invaded, besieged, and nearly wiped out more times than I can count, and we're still here. He looked at the enemy fleet on the display. These invaders are about to learn something that Earth taught us millions of years ago. It does not matter how big you are or how many of you there are. What matters is how hard you're willing to fight. And Commander Ryan Baker stood on the bridge of the USS Defiance, watching the spatial rift pulse with alien energy. 72 hours had passed since the rescue of the Harmonious Dawn. 72 hours of constant vigilance, brief skirmishes, and growing tension. The enemy fleet on the other side of the rift had grown to over 3,000 ships according to their sensors. They were massing for a major assault. Ryan had not slept more than 4 hours in the last 3 days. He could feel the exhaustion in his bones, but he pushed it aside. Sleep was a luxury he could not afford right now. His fleet stood between the rift and the rest of Union space. If they failed, if they let the enemy through, millions of innocent people would die. Enemy fleet activity increasing, Lieutenant Peter Grant reported from the tactical station. Sir, their formations are tightening. This looks like preparation for an assault. Ryan nodded. All ships to full battle readiness. Charge all weapons. Prepare to execute defensive pattern Omega-3. The bridge crew responded with practiced efficiency. Around the Defiance, the other 7 ships of the Fifth Fleet moved into position. They had been joined 6 hours ago by Captain Linda Hayes and the Constellation Battle Group, adding another 12 ships to their defensive line. 20 human vessels against thousands of enemies. The odds were not good, but they had been worse before. Ryan pulled up the tactical display on his command chair. The human fleet was arranged in a layered defense around the rift. The first line consisted of the fastest destroyers, positioned to harry and disrupt any enemy advance. Behind them, the cruisers provided heavy firepower and screening. The Defiance and the Constellation anchored the center, their powerful weapons and thick armor making them the keystones of the defense. "Incoming transmission from Admiral Morrison," the communications officer announced. Jack Morrison's face appeared on the main view screen. Behind him, Ryan could see the busy command center of Olympus Station. "Commander Baker, status report. Sir, enemy fleet is preparing for a major assault. We count approximately 3,200 vessels on the other side of the rift. Based on their movement patterns, they'll attack within the next 2 hours." Jack nodded grimly. "The 2nd and 7th fleets are en route. ETA is 6 hours. Can you hold until then?" Ryan looked at his tactical display again, running calculations in his head. 20 ships against over 3,000. They would need to destroy enemy vessels at a rate of more than 100 per hour, just to prevent being overwhelmed. And that assumed the enemy did not bring reinforcements through the rift during the battle. "Yes, sir. We'll hold." Jack smiled slightly. "I know you will, Ryan. The Galactic Union is mobilizing their forces as well. It's slow going because they haven't had to do this in centuries, but they're trying. Admiral Krenval is bringing a Union fleet of 200 ships. They'll arrive in 10 hours. Ryan did some quick math. "Sir, that means we need to hold alone for at least 4 hours after the enemy attacks." "I'm aware, Commander. That's why I'm sending you this." Jack gestured off-screen and data began flowing to Ryan's tactical display. Complete technical specifications for the new antimatter missiles. They were supposed to be classified for another year, but I convinced the brass that now is the time to use them. Ryan studied the data, his eyes widening. The missiles were devastating, each one carrying a warhead that could destroy a capital ship with a single hit. More importantly, they had extended range and improved targeting systems. "How many do we have?" "Every ship in your fleet is being resupplied right now. Supply shuttles are on their way with full missile loads. You'll have enough firepower to make those invaders regret coming through that rift." Ryan felt a grim satisfaction. "Thank you, sir. Don't thank me yet. Just hold that line, Commander. Morrison out." The view screen returned to showing the spatial rift. Ryan watched the energy patterns shift and pulse. Somewhere on the other side, the enemy commander was making final preparations for the assault. They probably thought they had overwhelming force. They probably expected the small human fleet to run or surrender. They were about to learn how wrong they were. 2 hours later, the enemy attacked. The rift suddenly expanded, growing to twice its previous size. Ships poured through in waves, hundreds of them, their dark hulls lit by the glow of charging weapons. They came in perfect formation, disciplined and organized. This was not a random raid or a scouting mission. This was a full military invasion. "All ships weapons free. Fire at will," Ryan ordered. The human fleet opened up with everything they had. The new antimatter missiles streaked across space, their engines burning bright against the darkness. When they hit, they did not just damage enemy ships. They erased them. Brilliant flashes of pure energy marked the annihilation of matter, each explosion destroying an enemy vessel completely. The enemy fleet faltered, clearly not expecting such devastating firepower. But they had numbers and they used them. Energy beams lanced out from thousands of ships, creating a web of deadly light that filled the space around the human fleet. The Defiance shook as enemy fire struck her shields. The barriers held, but Ryan could see the power levels dropping. "Helm evasive pattern Delta, keep us moving." Tactical concentrate fire on their heavy cruisers. Take out their command ships. The battle became a savage dance of destruction. Human ships dodged and weaved through enemy fire while their weapons carved paths of death through the invading fleet. The antimatter missiles were incredibly effective, but they were also limited in number. Ryan watched the ammunition counters drop with each salvo. Captain Hayes reports Constellation has taken damage to her port shields, the communications officer announced. She's holding position but requests support. Valiant and Defiant move to support the Constellation. Maintain overlapping fields of fire. The human ships worked together with a coordination that came from years of joint training. When one ship's shields weakened, another moved to cover them. When ammunition ran low, ships rotated back to resupply from the automated supply drones while others took their place on the line. But the enemy kept coming. For every ship the humans destroyed, 2 more came through the rift. "Sir, we've destroyed over 400 enemy vessels," Peter reported. "But they're still pushing forward. Our ammunition is down to 60%. Ryan nodded. They were winning every engagement, but the enemy was winning the war of attrition. "All ships pull back to defensive line beta. Tighten the formation." The human fleet contracted, forming a more concentrated defensive position. The enemy saw this as a sign of weakness and pressed harder, pushing more ships through the rift. Then Captain Linda Hayes had an idea. "Commander Baker, the rift itself is the problem. As long as it stays open, they can keep bringing reinforcements. What if we collapse it?" Ryan pulled up the sensor data on the rift. It was a stable spatial anomaly, held open by massive amounts of energy. If they could disrupt that energy, the rift might close, but it would take incredible firepower directed at precise coordinates. "Peter, can we target the rift's energy matrix?" The tactical officer worked his console. "Yes, sir. But we'd need to concentrate fire from at least 6 ships simultaneously, and we'd have to drop our defensive formation to do it, which meant leaving themselves vulnerable to enemy attack. But if they succeeded, they would cut off the enemy's reinforcements. It was a gamble, but war was always about gambling with lives and hoping you chose correctly. All ships, this is Baker. We're going to attempt to collapse the rift. I need 6 volunteers to break formation and target these coordinates." Ryan transmitted the targeting data. "Be advised, you'll be exposed to heavy fire during the firing sequence." 6 ship captains immediately volunteered. They were all veterans, officers who understood what was being asked and accepted the risk without hesitation. "Execute in 30 seconds. All other ships provide covering fire." Ryan watched the countdown timer on his display. Around him, the bridge crew worked with focused intensity. Everyone knew what was at stake. If this worked, they could win. If it failed, they would die. The timer reached 0. 6 human ships broke formation and unleashed their full firepower at the rift's energy matrix. Railgun rounds, lasers, and antimatter missiles all converged on carefully calculated points in space. The combined energy was staggering, more destructive force than most species used in entire wars. The rift began to destabilize. The purple and green energy that marked its edges flickered and pulsed erratically. The enemy fleet saw what was happening and redirected all their fire at the 6 exposed human ships. The USS Valiant took the brunt of it. Hundreds of energy beams struck her shield simultaneously. The barriers collapsed and enemy fire began tearing into her hull. Explosions rippled along her length as systems failed and compartments breached. "Valiant is taking critical damage," the communications officer reported. "Captain Stone is ordering evacuation of damaged sections." Ryan felt his chest tighten, but he kept his voice steady. "All ships increase covering fire. Get those beams off the Valiant." The rest of the human fleet poured fire into the enemy vessels, targeting the Valiant. It was not enough to stop all the attacks, but it drew some of the pressure away. The 6 ships maintained their fire on the rift, even as enemy weapons tore at their hulls.